Welcome back to another edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We're talking with Brian Phipps, who is a member of the Whipsnakes, the PLL Whipsnakes. And I'm going to ask the opening question I always ask. First of all, it's going to be really fun talking to a goaltender. But the first question I have, in 2006, Inside Lacrosse said you were the best player in America based on what kind of pressure, because that's the first time I ever actually had talked to somebody who's been in that position. What kind of pressure does that put on an 18-year-old when it first comes out? And maybe just walk us through what it was like from not only your standpoint, but from maybe even, kind of around you, family and things. That's a lot of pressure, I would think.
Yeah, I've actually never really thought of it that way, and kind of more of an honor than the pressure on me, and living up to the expectations that came out of high school. But my dad played at Maryland, my brother played at Maryland, obviously, and then my grandfather obviously played at Maryland as well. So just lacrosse has been in our family and our blood for a long time. So I think just having the opportunity to play at a high level and against some of the best competition, growing up in high school in the MIA in the Maryland area, was something that, I just really appreciated. And it was really cool that, I was the number one goalie and Mike Gavazin was the number two goalie, and we basically went to school a mile apart. So it was kind of like a rivalry that we established from fifth grade all the way through high school. So it was very cool to have that. But again, it's more of just appreciating playing the sport more so than anything.
Yeah, sometimes that's one of the things with recruiting now. The NCAA doesn't let coaches recruit at the ninth grade level. You put these targets on these kids' backs when they're 14, and sometimes they don't pan out to be the successes.
I would not have been one of the top recruits. I mean, my sophomore year, I kind of had a fracture in my leg. And then my junior year, I tore my ACL. So I didn't even get invited to like the blue chip top camp in the country because I didn't play enough. I wasn't good enough. So I was kind of looking around. I emailed Salisbury. I emailed some Division III, some lower Division Ones, being like, hey, does anybody need a goalie? Like, I'm, trying to find a home. And then kind of that summer going to my senior year, I played pretty well. And that's where I kind of earned my stripes.
The other question, and it just from this first question, Annapolis, from the Midwest, we hear about Maryland, we hear about Long Island. Give me obviously you're a Maryland guy, so Annapolis and the rest of it. But are they fairly comparable in terms of the quality of lacrosse?
I would definitely say the top tier talent that comes out of Maryland and Long Island are very similar. Just a little biased. I think we have more depth that in Maryland area between the Baltimore, Annapolis, and you can say DC area as well. I just because of our biasing, I'm sure my Long Island teammates and friends will give me a hard time, but it's just the consistency that I see each year is pretty impressive, and seeing guys move on from playing with our rec teams that we played in 6th and 7th and 8th grade. We're playing against my state championship team that I actually lost in 8th grade. There's 32 kids that played Division I in our 8th grade game. So it's pretty impressive.
The secret in New York, from having talked to folks on this show, is that lots of guys come back in the summertime and sort of adopt some of the players, and there's that cyclical kind of world. And we're going to talk a little bit about Spalding, where you're Archbishop Spalding, where you coach now. You've kind of turned that program around. What's the secret in Maryland? What's the secret in the Annapolis area in terms of what is it that makes the success there?
I just think it's the longevity that the sport's been around in our area, and you have like the legacy and the parents growing up. Like, I'm about to have a little girl, and she's gonna have a lacrosse stick in her hand before she can walk probably. And that's kind of the history that this area's had, and that's what I grew up with. And I was fortunate that my grandfather played at Maryland, so I've had lacrosse in my blood in my family for numerous years. Not just the kid that picks it up and is trying to learn, where my family's been around it my whole life.
Did you play any other sports?
Excuse me?
Did you play any other sports?
I played everything. So growing up, I did basketball, soccer, karate, baseball, lacrosse, played football in high school, swim team, you name it. So I pretty much did everything.
We'll get into the specifics a little bit later, but why goalie of all positions?
Two stories that kind of stood out. Kind of when I was in clinic and our goalie moved up to the midget level, like the next level, we didn't have a goalie to play. And my buddy and I kind of said, all right, I'll play one half, you play one half. And I played attack and goalie going all the way up to high school. And then when I got to high school, my dad was like, you got to pick one position and you're not very fast. So I'd recommend you stick to goalie. So that's kind of how I kind of stuck with the goalie position.
We talk a little bit about on the show. We've talked about sometimes in goaltending and hockey it was always at 8, 9, 10. It was always the fat kid in the neighborhood who ended up slow kid. And then by the time he gets to be 14, he spent more time on the ice and becomes the best skater because he finally grew into his body. The point also is, I think goalie in any sport, much like being a catcher, there's a certain mentality that you just don't put your worst kid in the position at an early age, because I think it takes a special personality to have projectiles coming at you at a high rate of speed. Is that a fair estimation?
Not only are you in a high pressure or high volume of shots at an early age, but the pressure of, I call it the scoreboard factor when I work with young goalies. Like if an attackman messes up, he can ride the ball back. A midfielder throws the ball, he can sub off or get back on defense. You know, a defenseman messes up, the goalie can save him. But if a goalie messes up, that scoreboard lights up, says 1-0, and everybody knows you made a mistake. So that's the tough part.
Are you an extrovert as a personality? So as it relates to goalie, are you pretty good with keeping the thick skin?
Yeah, I try not to let things affect me and try to stay, even keel. I think that's one of the attributes that help me as a goalie and a coach is that I try not to get too high and too low, just to kind of stay even keel, flat line across. So we make a big play, and growing up, my dad always told me your most important play is the next one. So you could have 15 saves, but if you let in the 16th shot, you could lose. So kind of got to focus on that next one.
In recent weeks, there's been some miking of players and some discussion between teammates and goalies, and it hasn't been always the best conversation. And it was kind of an inside the baseball kind. I'm sure that's been talked to in the conversation with with coaches and things. But you got to have the constitution to be able to not if you miss 10, you got to stop the 11th. That's the way it is.
I totally agree. Like you could have a bad day, but you could step up in the fourth quarter and make that important save to help win the game. Like I remember one of my best sporting two of the games that have stood out to me in my mind are one in college when we beat Georgetown 14-13, and I had 3 saves because our offense played so well and it was just exciting to be a part of.
Right.
And Ohio Machine, we beat the Denver Outlaws like 26 or 24-23, and I had 10 saves. But like those are the games where it's like I didn't play that great, but I made saves that were needed to in the end. And it's weird. Those are the games that I remember the most because that's what tested me the most of either, you're not having if you're on fire and you're playing well, like that comes easy. But the games that you're not, seeing the ball well or not playing really well, but to come up big and help your team win, and obviously the offense helping and scoring the amount of goals helps. But those are the instances that stand out to me.
I think the interesting part lately is there's been a couple guys that have actually broken down the position by physics. And we always think of goaltending for lacrosse, much like we do with hockey, but the physics of the position, we're finding out that there's really no correlation between the two sports. And positioning of the old U versus maybe a rectangle, and we're kind of changing the way we look at it. And in hockey, it's low scoring, obviously, and in lacrosse, not so much. And I think that the position is really evolving, not only because of the way the guys are playing, but because I think it's attracting a different kind of player maybe than it did 10 years ago. Is that a fair statement? I
would agree. I mean, you're looking at, the best goalies in the world playing the PLL, and you're hoping to get 60% save percentages. Like that's something like you tell I also work at a high school. You tell a kid he's going to get a 60% on his test, he's going to cry and be upset. Yeah. But I tell goalies I work with, like 60%, you're going to be an All-American. So that's kind of another mentality that you kind of have to understand is how you handle those failures versus successes.
I have a chart that I give to our goalies all the time, and this is the percentage at 10 feet, this is the percentage at 20 feet.
Yeah.
So if it's 85% from 6 feet, and you're at 40%, that you're doing pretty good.
100%. My dad coached me for a while growing up. He always said, make all the easy saves, half the hard ones, and you'll be an All-American. And that's kind of my mentality. Like you kind of have to make the ones you're supposed to and steal a couple that you're not supposed to, and that's kind of how it goes.
We have a chart. You got to make 3 saves during the year that I have to go, the game saver. And if you can do 3 a year, just 3, and it might be luck, just going to an area where you're just reaching for it, then then you've passed that. You know, you're now you're better than just an average starter.
Yeah, if you see like Nick Morocco this past weekend, kind of that save at the end of the game, like on Marcus Holman, and just that one save kind of catapulted his team to be successful.
We have a commonality in friendship with Bill Wilford, who was the coach for the Ohio Machine, and there was a Scott Rogers played for them for a couple of years. Scott made a save with the butt end falling over sideways through the butt end up. Again, it's a lucky save, but at the same time, it's not lucky if you save it.
It still counts.
That's right. It still counts on the sheet.
Yeah.
What position did Dad play growing up?
My dad played defense and goalie. So
Okay.
He played a little bit of both.
Was he happy when you chose between, he obviously tells you you're slow, but was he happy that you ended up in the goal?
I think so. I think my mom was not. My mom's like the nervous wreck on the games. Like even to this day, being the pressure that's on a goalie, the pressure on a goalie's mom is even worse.
Right. Take you backwards a little bit. We talked a little bit about your start in the sport. Grandpa played, mom and dad played. You must have started at a relatively early age, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's pictures of me like being barely able to walk with like a fiddle stick in my hand.
So you grew up with the sport.
Yeah.
High school, where'd you go?
I went to Severn High School.
Okay.
Right in the right outside of Annapolis. So I coach against them every year, which is interesting, but it's nice. Any
chance of thinking to go to the Naval Academy, even that close?
My grandfather coached at the Naval Academy for a couple of years with Builderback back in the day when they won their like 9 championships in a row or whatever it was. But they never really called to recruit me. So, and I think my mom might have told them like, please don't call my son. But it was, if they called, I would have been interested. But I'm happy I went to Maryland.
Now, coming out of high school, when did you have some thought in your head, or when did the family have some thought that this could be a college opportunity? Did you know pretty early?
I knew I wanted to play at the college level. I just didn't know how high I could play. My brother was a really, really good player, and I didn't think I'd be nearly at his speed or his capability. He played at Tech, and he was getting recruited by North Carolina, Maryland, etc. Like I said, I was a late bloomer. So Kip Turner was a varsity goalie when I was a freshman. So I was on JV. So I idolized him and wanted to fill his shoes. And obviously he went to Virginia and had a very successful career. So it's been fun to kind of be able to catch up to him a little bit. But my sophomore year, I started on varsity, but fractured my leg. So I didn't play that junior summer. Then I tore my ACL, so I missed junior, fall into the spring season. So I just was hoping for a shot. Like I said, I got to the point where I was emailing Salisbury and Delaware and trying to find a home. And then, Maryland and some other high D1 schools started calling me after my junior summer. So that was exciting and be like, wow, okay, here we go.
What were career thoughts in those days? Because I know you're coaching now, and I think teaching and education is something you wanted to go into. Am I correct?
Yeah, definitely. I went to Maryland. I was a double major in history and education, but I couldn't do the student teaching qualifications during spring season because of playing.
Sure.
So I majored in history, and then I was planning on being a high school teacher and coach. And then once I graduated, the coaching change came in, and Coach Tillman got hired me right away after I graduated to stay on staff at Maryland.
You're an All-American, both academically and playing wise, so you obviously must have been a good student.
Yeah, I give that credit to my mom for sure. But yeah, academically, obviously, had a great high school education growing up, and big focus of kind of being able to be successful off the field. You got to help you be successful on the field.
One of the questions in the sort of the threads that we keep talking about, is it only been the last couple of years where you can think about being a professional lacrosse player financially. And even now it's, that's still subject to, discussion depending upon what kind of lifestyle you want to live.
Yeah.
But in those days, it was a part-time job. It was more of an avocation than it was a vocation. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would agree. It was more of not an afterthought, but it was definitely something to keep playing the sport you love. Like you played it for the love of the game, not necessarily the monetary value. And lucky enough, I've stuck around it for a while to help me and keep playing at this level. It's kind of come full circle to help you in different aspects. And I think, the connections you build in the lacrosse world, whether it's professionally or not, have helped me in my other, career paths as well.
At Maryland, joining the Big Ten, that had to help the entire athletic program, I would think, at Maryland. Is that close?
I think so. I'm not necessarily. I stopped coaching there prior to them leaving the Big Ten. I was still coaching at the ACC at ranks, but if it's something that it was a little different to get used to, obviously. But I think it's helping the athletic program for sure.
I keep thinking that with all the success they've had as of late, the last 3 or 4 years, they've built a great program. Probably kind of replaced, I haven't replaced Duke or North Carolina, but certainly in the same breath of maybe what used to be Syracuse. And I think they've done a great job. And a lot of those guys are homegrown talents. I mean, everybody stays home. And
yeah, we got a little bit of everything, which is kind of nice to see. But again, it's with this playing for your state and the state school, obviously it's something that a lot of my friends looked up to and wanted to do. And it's nice that the success we're having and Coach Tillman's putting together, it's fun to be a part of and watch them continue to grow and compete at the highest levels every year.
I'm a Spartan from Michigan State, and I have never asked this question. What is a terrapin?
It's a turtle,
Okay.
It's like a diamondback turtle type stuff.
Right.
I mean, that's what they tell us. So.
They have such a great relationship with Under Armour, but the Maryland flag is I think is maybe the best in the country.
It's definitely iconic. When you look at that, exactly where it's coming from and who's involved and so forth. So they've done a good job to tie that into a lot of uniforms and logos, etc.
What's the best part about playing at Maryland?
The history, the legacy. Obviously, my dad, my grandfather played there, but the takeaways. I didn't win a national championship when I was playing, but my groomsmen, my best friend, my teammates, they're all Maryland guys that we still talk to and have group chats with. And I just got back from dinner with one of my high school teammates that just had a baby girl, so it's kind of coming full circle that all this aspects of it. And we played together a little over 12 years ago and so forth. And we're still talking to this day and have that bond moving forward.
I'm not sure how many Maryland guys are on the Whipsnakes roster, but it's more than less. And if you're not from Maryland, you get, at dinner, do you get ostracized to the outside table?
It's funny. So like my first weekend with the Whipsnakes, I was rooming with Colin Squires, who's a Denver kid. He's actually a rookie, so he's 10 years younger than me. So I'm reading baby books and he's watching stuff, doing like social media stuff or whatever that college kids do. But we went to dinner and it was Earhart, Mueller, Dunn, Bryce Young, myself, and then Colin Squires. So we're all chumming it up, talking to Maryland stories, talking to Maryland guys. We're like, oh, Colin, do you have anything you want to say? Or we forgot, like, not that we weren't discluding him, but we're just giving a hard time saying, oh, you remember that time at Bentley's? And just giving and like trying to see if he could hang with us and have our same conversation. But it's definitely a nice camaraderie feeling, but we're obviously welcome everybody that's part of it as long as they buy into what Coach Stignan is doing. And it's very exciting to see that Coach Stag's like, this is not the Maryland Terrapins, this is the Whipsnakes, and you got to buy in to be a Whipsnake. And luckily a lot of the Maryland guys are part of that and buy into the same qualities that Coach Stignan has said.
Well, with the traveling circus that it is, with going from town to town, I think that by putting those guys together, I think the continuity that you have to make the play better coming out of a similar system, I think it's got to be a pretty brilliant move than just, necessarily drafting the best talent, because there is at least a commonality among that group in the core of it. And I think that's been a real strength of the league, honestly. And I also think it helps from an attraction for fans, because all of a sudden all the guys from Maryland can help each other. And I think that's something that's important.
For sure. And I think Not saying that like the other teams don't have the same cohesion, because like the Chromes, a lot of the Rattlers that played in the MLL together and have those connections. But I think that Maryland bond definitely, goes beyond the lacrosse field. And I think that's how I'm big as a coach now. It's like you win through chemistry and trust. And that's kind of what the Whipsnakes have with each other, because they've built that for, 10 plus years from college to pros now.
It's important. If somebody gets on my sailboat with maize and blue and I'm a Spartan, it's there's always a comment made. So
Yeah.
we're all loyal to our universities. I get that part of it.
Yeah.
Coming out of Maryland after making All-American, you ended up getting drafted by the Chesapeake Bayhawks. Am I correct?
Yep.
That was your first attempt at pro lacrosse?
Yeah, my first year I got drafted. I was on the practice squad for that first year when we won the championship in 2010, playing behind Chris Garrity, who's another Annapolis local goalie. And then the next year I played in 11 for the Bayhawks. And then the expansion draft happened, and I was picked up by the Ohio Machine.
So like playing in Columbus?
It was awesome. I actually really, really enjoyed it. One, it's a nice hour flight from BWI on Southwest, but two, the fans and the town area of Columbus was awesome. I really enjoyed it and kind of worked out well to be there and play. And then once I kind of got a little bit older, it was nice to kind of come back home.
Was Bear there? Bear Davis, the coach there when you were there?
Yeah, so Bear and I have a unique relationship because he was the head coach at Spalding before me.
Okay.
So he was the head coach at Spalding when I was coaching at Georgetown, but playing for him. And then when he left Spalding, I took over like 3 or 4 months after that. So we've kind of kept in touch a lot, and he helped me with kind of the passing of the torch at Spalding, and we've kind of kept in touch ever since.
He's a solid coach. He knows inside and out.
He's one of the most dedicated coaches to the game of lacrosse, which is awesome to see.
I mentioned Bill Wilford, and the joke that Billy and I always have is that Billy's a high school guy until you sit down and talk to either Billy or Teddy, his brother, who's now retired from Arlington, you realize that this is one of those sports that Billy could walk into the Green Bay Packers and coach.
Yeah.
He knows the sport inside and out, and he's happy being a teacher. And it's the commonality of, like one of the questions I asked him was, one day you're coaching a high school and the next day you're stepping on the field with a bunch of pros. But as you point out, here's the rookie from Denver, and it's a different transition. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's definitely you go from having to coach effort to coaching like X and O's, and kind of that they have the talent that you can kind of pick and choose how we want to schematically coach, rather than kind of the effort piece that you have to get on the youth kids and high school kids about.
From the Ohio Machine, you went where?
Back to the Bayhawks, and played with them for 5 years or so, until this past year switching over to PLL.
Is this being an MLL guy who got a job, and there was a lot that didn't, because they've consolidated it now? You actually can play a field season, and then if you wanted to play inside, there's that opportunity with the NL. Being one of the guys that got a job, has it been a good move, you think, overall for lacrosse professionally?
I definitely think it's a good move overall for lacrosse. Just all pieces are now working together for the same goal. I think it was a little bit the MLL and the PLL. Each side did a little bit things better than the other, and but you divided the resources. We're not a big enough sport that we can have 2 leagues. So I think now that you have all the sponsors and all the main equipment companies all working together as one, promoting the sport together, it's only going to get bigger and better, and it's very exciting to be a part of.
Is the traveling circus going to go back to towns, or is it going to stay the traveling circus? And I know that's a speculative question, and it's one that's been bandied around a bunch, but I think you have to get, and again, just a personal opinion, I think you have to have solid community support rather than go from town to town. That's just
I think it's probably something they're going to think about and look into. One, it's really cool to play at different areas and see the fan bases and people that love lacrosse. Like back in last weekend in Minnesota was one of the coolest venues I've ever been a part of and played in. And seeing the fans that drove like 3 or 4 hours to come to the games. So they're fans everywhere, which is really cool. But I think that and give or take a couple of years that the city base might come back, but to kind of get us out there to kind of just see other markets and see where fan support's going to be. This is a great way to do that.
You're a great goaltender, but you're also 33. Are you surprised you're still playing?
Like I said, I'm not very fast, so luckily that doesn't have to come into play. So I can still keep the hand-eye coordination and the kind of the inside six yards. I just have to move inside the crease, and that's about it. But I think that my brain has gotten better, and which helps me be successful, of knowing the game, knowing the players, knowing the defense, and kind of orchestrating that, and being a coach on the field helps me kind of see the shots that I want to see and help the defense play, a certain way. So, that's kind of what I bring to the table, and playing at the Whipsnakes helps a lot because I actually coached and worked with Kyle Bernlohr while I was at Maryland for a while. So we have that relationship that, we both appreciate each other, support each other. So I'm there to be his number one fan and support him and help him be the best goalie that he can be and help us win a championship. And, if my time's called, then I'll step in and be ready to go. But it's something that, I see here as a backup veteran goalie. I think I can just bring a few things to the table that help our team.
As a goalie, you want to see a defensive game, but one of the things with the PLL, you've taken 10 yards out of the field. You still have a 2-point line. That changes the sport a little bit, especially for guys like Mike Earhart, who can come flying down the field and shoot the ball at 95 miles an hour.
He takes a step over midline. He's in shooting range.
Right. No, I completely agree. My question is, would you like to see maybe high school and college maybe consider a shorter field to make the game faster? And the comparison would be, you've taken the red line out of hockey at the collegiate level, so you can make that longer pass, and it's not as fast a game as the pros, but it looks as fast because you're covering more area.
Yeah, I definitely think that the PLL is very innovative and it's changing for the better and different rules. I'd first love to see the college and the games kind of get a 2-point arc just to see how that would change. How colleges were played and at a faster pace and so forth. But I definitely think that the PLL kind of changing the rules a little bit is for the better, and it's just a newer version. But I would like to see all of lacrosse kind of under one rules so that someone watching the college game can watch the pro game the next day and understand that it's the same kind of sport.
You're aware that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know like the NFL and college, like the hash lines are different, but like the random fan doesn't notice that. But for a random fan to watch and say they scored a 2-point in the last game, why can't they score a 2-pointer in this game? Yeah. I think that's kind of tough.
The familiarity is somebody will call and they'll do this in high school, and it's not a rule in high school. It's only a rule in the pros. Yeah. You think it's not catchable. It's right. a college and pro rule, and they throw something at the television because they think the referee screwed up. And it changes. It changes. There's, I think, 50 or 55 rules differences between NFL and high school. Yeah. They're subtle. Most of them are very small, and most of them are based on safety that you can't use at a higher level.
Yeah, but even our level, like we at the MIA private schools, we play college rules, but then there's the public schools play federation rules, which is different. So it's still like even the high school level, there's different rules that each school's kind of abide by. So if we could just get everybody under one roof and one rule set, I think that would help the game tremendously.
When you play in the Maryland State Tournament, which is high school and public schools, or do you have a separate tournament?
We don't play in the public school tournaments. So we play just the private school league tournaments. But if we did play a public school, like years past, we have to play the public school rules because it's a state-sponsored sport.
I don't want to sound stupid.
So there's no shot clock. There's no
okay.
The clearing clocks are different. So it's a totally different game.
Yeah, it's much faster, I would think.
The shot clock has been a very nice blessing to the game of lacrosse. You got to give credit to the girls because they put it in first.
That's right. Should there be a shot clock in high school?
Yeah, we like I said, with private schools, we play with a shot clock, and I think it would help tremendously.
Is it 80 seconds for you guys?
Yeah. So we play exactly what the college plays. So 80 seconds to 20 to get it over, that stuff. But
no more stalling.
Correct.
And then figuring out what stalls is to keep it in the box in a way, it's insane because it's such, every referee's got a different interpretation. And as a coach, it makes you crazy, right?
Exactly.
What can we learn from the PLL following down from a player standpoint? What do you take away to your high school team? And I want to talk about Archbishop Spalding here in a couple of seconds. What do you take away from what you've learned up there? Because I think the PLL is a little bit faster than the MLL. Is that fair?
I would probably say so. I mean, they're both pretty fast games in terms of whatnot. The MLL was a 60-second shot clock, and now the PLL is a 52. So that speeds it up a little bit more. But they're very similar. But the pro game, etc., is a faster game than college and high school for sure.
When you see around the field and you see you and you see Brody and you see some of the guys that have been around a while, do you kind of count your blessings that you're still playing?
Yeah, it's also very cool to. I mean, I was with the Redwoods for a couple of weeks and kind of being there with Kyle Harrison, and I mean, I remember watching him play at Homewood when I was a kid, and I'm a veteran now in the league, so I can only imagine what it's like for others. But it's very cool to kind of see them continuing on and playing, and the longevity that these guys have done is really impressive.
You've had some very good coaches in your career, and I just want to talk a little bit about Jim Stignan. He's quite a guy.
He's someone that I never really knew personally. Obviously, being in the MLL and watching my teammates or former teammates and friends play for the PLL and playing for Coach Staggs and winning championships, I was a fan. But now being in the locker room with him and seeing how he constructs the team and holds people accountable and what he's about, he just makes it a very professional sport and a very professional team. And it's exciting to see, and it's awesome to be a part of. And it kind of shows why they've had the success that they have. Yeah. I think he's done a very good job, and I've come to respect him a lot and appreciate what he's done for myself and my career, but also, for the Whipsnakes and the PLL and lacrosse in general. You
have some serious lumber in front of you. Mike Earhart may be one of the meanest players that's picked up a stick. Charlie Hayes playing with you guys? No, Charlie's playing. Yeah, Charlie's playing with you guys.
Yeah.
Another guy that's nasty. He's a local kid from here. Okay. He played against us in high school when he was nasty then. Does that help a goalie in that levels? Because
for sure.
I think Mike chews wood, if I'm not mistaken.
He definitely swings lumber for sure. It's nice to have that kind of, pit bull mentality. I say as a coach now, and when I play goalie, I try to coach on the field. Like, we want to dictate defensively rather than let the offense do what they want to do. So having those types of defensemen and pit bulls that can go out, and Bryce Young, who's going to, be his physical means to the game as well. Like, that just helps me and gives me more confidence knowing that they're in front of me and playing and kind of imposing their will on the offense and not letting them do what they want to do. It's kind of what our goal is every day.
Let me switch hats for a second. And you went 2018, I think you took over at Archbishop Spalding?
I actually got there in 2015.
15?
I've been there. This is I kind of lost track. I think my 17th season this past year. So.
When you got there, they were not the powerhouse they've become. So that's obviously got to be contributed to your success and what you're doing with the program. It is one of the best programs in the country, high school programs. So my question is, are you teaching there?
Yes.
Okay, so you're actually sort of following the dream you've always wanted.
Correct.
So the PLL is the weekend fun stuff.
It's the ice. It's the icing on top. The cherry on top of a sundae. So,
what have you learned? Who have you learned from, and what did you bring back to Spalding, and maybe highlight some of those mentors? And I've got to believe that mom and dad and grandpa's got to be part of that formula.
Yeah, my first hire was my dad to help coach on the sidelines. Just to have someone that I trusted and a mentor that, he coached me and has very successful teams growing up. So that was kind of my first phone call. And then, playing for Coach Cottle and coaching with Coach Tillman and Coach Warren, who's at Georgetown now, he turned around that program. And kind of, I think that we mirrored ourselves very similar in terms of the Spalding program with Georgetown. And he kind of came back saying, just got to be yourself and be you, and let the players see you who you are, and build those relationships. And that's what's going to kind of foster that growth as a program. And don't get me wrong, we have very, very talented players, but we have kids that buy in, that are all about Spalding lacrosse and want to get better. And that's what's made us successful these past couple of years, is because practice ends and doesn't end for them. They'll go home and watch film or break down or work on their own. And that's kind of the awesome part of being a coach, is you see them enjoy the sport and want to continue doing that more and more on their own.
One of your young men, I think, was player of the year this year, if not mistaken.
He was a state player of the year in Maryland. Yes.
Where's he headed? Was his last name start with W? Worcester Hawks?
Weishauer.
Weishauer. Okay.
Yeah. He is a rising senior and he's committed to Towson.
Okay. So he's staying home.
He is. He committed to Towson and got calls from pretty much everybody, but is staying in Towson and staying local.
Since I don't know much about the Spalding program, are they a defensive-minded program since you're a goalie, or is it?
We used to be. I would have kind of put my hat on us being like obviously playing the defensive side, coaching defense at Maryland and Georgetown. Like, I'm defense through and through. We were a defensive-minded team, and our previous best players under my tutelage were probably defensive guys. But this past year, we led the league in goals by we scored more goals than the next team was 20 goals behind us. We averaged 12.5 goals a game. So Spencer Ford, our offensive coordinator, who's been in the MLL professional ranks for 20 plus years. So it's nice to have him and have that connection of pro lacrosse that I have with him. And we had 6 guys on our team score more than 30 points this year. So it was fun to watch for that, for sure. Again, as a defensive-minded guy, seeing us score 12 goals a game, it makes that end a lot easier.
I took over a high school in Ann Arbor, Skyline, and we had decided to hire all former Division I players. First time I'd ever had that opportunity. A couple from Michigan, a couple from UD, and it's been such a treat the last couple of years. And same kind of thing. They bring a different vibe to the process than this 65-year-old old guy. If I were to ask Mom, and I'll wrap this up, if I were to ask Mom who you resemble as a coach, Dad or somebody not like Dad, what would your mom say?
Somebody not like Dad.
Okay.
My dad was more of a intense scream, not negative, but just intense scream in your face type. And I'm more of a calm, cool, collected, put my arm around to kind of build you up that way. But every now and then our guys need a kick in the butt, I'll do that. But I'm more of the nurturing, develop relationships, kind of build you up, kind of the Space Jam, Mike Secret stuff kind of mentality more so.
Is your classroom the same way?
Oh yeah. My classroom is it's a fun loving group. I mean, I teach history, and the first thing I say is, you guys might not like history, but we'll have fun in this class. So.
I would be remiss not touching you. Right now, you're involved with the 6-on-6 Olympic program and getting involved in that a little bit. Just talk a little bit about it. And the question I asked you as a pre-question before we started talking, talk about what you think is going to be the kind of player that's going to excel in that format of lacrosse.
Yeah, it was definitely a unique experience. I actually played in it 2 years ago against Canada, in a joint kind of just pick up, just play after we played them in a regular game. But this past week playing with the USA Sixes team, it's definitely a unique game, and the coaching and the players were trying to figure out what's this unique style of how you want to scheme and play that way. But it's definitely up and down, a little West Jenny drill type aspect of it, fast pace. But the guys that are going to be successful are the two-way midfielders. I think obviously Matt Abbott's a little bit older, and maybe he won't be around for the Olympics in 2028.
Right.
But he's the one guy that I was like, wow, he'd be really good. Brian Constantine was probably the best player at our Sixes this event, because you can go up and down, play offense, play defense, and have the stick skills and athleticism to score.
What's the length of the field?
It's a little bit like restraint line to restraint line.
Okay.
So it's a little bit longer than that. I don't know.
Like this is typically the 7-on-7 we play all off season.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It could have similar concepts to indoor, in terms of that field size, but you can't do the moving picks. You can't do like the off ball stuff. And if you shoot the ball and you miss the cage, it's the other team's ball. So it's going the other direction. So that's a thing that teams, you don't want to take a 15-yard shot and miss the cage.
Right. It's all short stick too, right? No long stick.
Oh, correct. All short sticks.
Okay. So it's almost a hybrid.
It's 100% a hybrid of, I mean, I like to call it's basketball is what I like to say.
Yeah.
Because you have the transition in basketball, the layups, the one-on-ones, but then you also have settled offense as well.
We should call Steve Stenerson and Mr. Groover and find out how they came up with that concept, because it's got to be.
I have no idea. I think they wanted something that space-wise, and I know for Olympic purposes they wanted to have smaller rosters.
Right.
That was a big thing for getting approved by the Olympics, is to have smaller rosters for less people for costs and so forth. But still not sure how they came up with this format.
Were you guys about 15 on a roster, 18, 12? Where are you on the roster size?
As of right now, we probably had 30 at training camp. So it was 15 and 15, but okay. The Olympic roster as of now is 10.
Oh my. Okay. So speed's going to be a factor.
Endurance, like that's where it's like we had 15 guys going up and down and we were exhausted.
Okay.
8-minute quarters, but again, we were playing at a fast pace because you had subs. If you don't have those subs, it's probably going to be more of a, like basketball style. Like we'll walk up the court this time, settle offense rather than running gun the whole time.
Yeah. Last question, and it just to throw this out because it's kind of you see young goalies all the time. What mistakes? But let me make a better question. Let me ask a better question. If you had one tip to give a young goalie, you do camps, you're instructing those kinds of kids. What's the biggest mistake that kids are making, and what should kids concentrate on if I'm a 15-year-old high school kid?
The main thing that we're working on with our youth goalies is all about footwork and moving our feet out. Like, to explain it to the youth kids, I would say get your belly button to every ball. So like if you can get your belly button to every shot to make the save, it's going to help you be successful. So you're not reaching, you're not lunging, you're kind of staying square to the shot every time. So belly button to the ball, and the kids are like, oh, belly button. And it's just an easier way to relate to the younger kids.
Right.
And the other thing is the stick that you use, because you see a lot of goalies use sticks that are factory strong or no pockets, that the ball bounces out and gives it rebounds and so forth. So those are the two things that I think are big for youth goalies, is the footwork, not being afraid to get in front of the ball, right? Get your belly button in front of it, and then kind of the stick work and having a stick that can kind of catch and not give up rebounds.
Cool. Well, listen, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time. It's been really fun, and I can only wish you the best of the rest of this season. And hopefully next spring, Archbishop has the kind of success you've had this year. You built yourself a program there that I think is pretty exemplary, and I think it'll be that way for a while.
I appreciate you taking the time and talk with me. It's always fun to talk lacrosse.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.